Hey, this is Josh Brom with Life Report here with a listener mail video. Haven't done any of these in a while, and I'm hoping to get back to it. We want to do more of these now, especially in case you didn't see, I've got a post at prolifepodcast.net about our new publishing schedule. Basically, we're between season 3 and 4 right now, so we're on break and during June. We're actually recording episodes, and season 4 starts in the beginning of July. And then our schedule is just going to be full 20-minute episodes of Life Report will be every other week, but then we're going to be trying to post more kind of bonus content or smaller things on a more regular basis. And part of that will include more of these listener mail videos. I actually posted a poll on the Facebook page, and if you didn't see it and you want to go vote, for sure do it, or just comment. It's just up at facebook.com/prolifepodcast. I'm just asking for listener mail responses. Would you prefer a blog post response, a written written response, or would you prefer a very short kind of video, like maybe a 3-minute kind of overview video, or something more like what I've done in the past, which is anywhere between like a 7 and a 14-minute kind of a fuller response video? And so far, pretty much everybody says they want the long videos. So that's weird. That's not what you. We're like the anti-YouTube channel. You're not supposed to do long videos, but here we are. It seems like that's what our fans want. So, or I don't like the word fan. Whatever, followers, whatever. Anyway, good listener mail question. In fact, I just got this today, and this is a big debate in the pro-life movement right now. And so I wanted to just share a few thoughts, and I hope that it's helpful to you. Bobby asks, some pro-life people oppose incrementalist pro-life laws because they always end with, quote, and then you can kill the baby, end quote. What are your thoughts? Bobby asks. So I've thought about this issue a lot. I could be persuaded, and I'm not going to get into all my feelings about this. This kind of gets into the personhood bill debate. One of the arguments from people that are usually pushing personhood legislation or like state personhood bills, or you usually say kind of all the other bills, the incrementalist bills, aren't really pro-life because you could end them with, and then you can kill the baby. So what they mean is, like, if you pass a parental notification measure, then you could say, well, if you haven't notified your parents, you can't have an abortion. But then if you have notified the parents, then you can kill the baby. They would say that's not a pro-life bill. Or informed consent bills, where it's like you've got to have a 24-hour waiting period, and you have to see this information about fetal development or fetal pain or whatever. But then they say, but then you can kill the baby after that if you still choose to. They would be against bills like that for primarily principled reasons. For the most part, I'm not in that camp. Although I'm not saying that there are no arguments worth considering from personhood people. I think there are arguments worth considering. These aren't people that haven't put any thought to what they're saying. And I know that kind of incrementalists and personhood people have really gone at each other in pretty direct and I think probably harmful ways. And I don't even have to say probably. I don't think I have to qualify that. I think there's been some harmful things said about both sides. We've gotten into a little bit on Life Report, but not too much. So I think I've got some other personhood questions in my listener mail pile, which is actually pretty big right now. So we might get into some of my other thoughts on personhood legislation, but I'm going to try to restrict it to this idea of, what about bills where you could supposedly end them with, and then you can kill the baby. Here's the common ground that I have. I agree that we do not want to communicate to pro-choice people that we as the pro-life community only care about babies that feel pain. Because it's a fetal pain bill being debated right now. We don't want to imply or communicate to pro-choice people that we actually only care about babies that are old enough to look like pretty babies. Like the first 4 or 5 weeks of life doesn't look as cute, or baby-ish or whatever, you know what I mean, as like a 20-week fetal development picture, right? It just, one looks like a baby and the other one looks like babies look at that age, but doesn't look like a newborn. That's basically what I mean. And so we don't want to imply that, well, we only care about older babies, or we only care about babies that were not conceived in rape. So there's kind of this, I agree that one of the principal concerns that some personhood people have is that we're going to really confuse pro-choice people. If some of us are saying that abortion should be illegal, but at the same time, they would maybe say on the other side of our mouth, we're kind of pro these different state bills that don't completely ban all abortions, then that might send a mixed message. So I can agree that we don't want to send a mixed message. My disagreement is that I don't think that most forms of incremental legislation actually send a mixed message or send a confusing message. I don't think our message is very confusing. And that's because I think that most people, especially now, I think people are much more aware of what's going on behind the scenes politically than they were, let's say, 70 years ago, right? We just know a lot more. This is the information age. And so a lot of people have seen shows that try to depict the reality of what goes on behind the scenes, like The West Wing and House of Cards. And I don't know how accurate House of Cards is to how this actually works. If it is accurate, then it's really scary and kind of sad and depressing. And we know more. I don't have to justify that. I don't have to defend that. That's just clear. And so I think most people kind of know how politics works. And as much as I would love to believe that politics was all about never compromising a bill, like it's all about having these, positions and we're only going to put forth perfect bills or else we're going to give up. That's just not the way, like politicians that actually are effective, that actually get bills passed. That's not really how it works. Almost ever. I'm not even sure if the almost needs to be there. I'm not sure if there's any bills that really get passed, assuming that there's disagreement. I mean, there's some bills that pass like no one disagrees. There's no even debate, right? But I'm talking about something like abortion, where there's a lot of lobbying on both sides of the issue, where society is somewhat split on it. Politics just works a certain way, and so I think we're aware of that, and you try to get past what you can. So like, for example, this debate was big when South Dakota tried their 2 back-to-back abortion bans. The first abortion ban they tried, they did no rape exception because they said, we are not going to compromise our bill. And then they lost, and according to the post-election polling, they would have won if they'd had a rape exception. So they could have banned 99% of abortions. And then spent all of that time and resources educating people about how babies conceived in rape are just as human as the rest, and spending all of their time kind of responding to both the emotional and relational aspects of this really difficult issue, but also the complex philosophical things that come with it. Not as much personhood, but bodily rights arguments. But bodily rights arguments, if they're tied to rape, are a lot more powerful than bodily rights arguments that are not tied to rape. And we explained that in our de facto guardian paper. If you haven't seen it yet, go to prolifepodcast.net. And just if you go on the left side, there's this big white image that says new bodily rights paper. Download it, read it. We explain that. So I'm not going to defend that view. I'm just saying they could have spent all their time, and they didn't. So then after they lost, they tried the next time with the rape exception, and they lost again. Because I think by this time Planned Parenthood spent so many millions of dollars lobbying that just the pro-lifers couldn't compete with that. And a lot of people thought it was great that the first time that they didn't compromise, and then they were really angry the second time when they did quote-unquote compromise. And here's my view. I think it's one thing to endorse something, and it's another thing to say what is allowed under the law. It's one thing to endorse something. It's another thing to explain what is allowed in the law. So like the partial birth abortion ban. People freaked out when the Supreme Court passed the ban on partial birth abortion. This is the Gonzalez versus Carhart decision. Because if you read Gonzalez versus Carhart cover to cover, there's some pretty gnarly paragraphs that explain what exactly is allowed. And I remember, because I was working full time in the pro-life movement when that decision was upheld, people were calling it a pro-choice bill because of the gruesome things that were in it, because the decision said what abortionists can and cannot do. And for me, I felt like, yeah, it's grisly, but it seems like, wouldn't it be unfair if the Supreme Court passed a really vague decision that said it wasn't very clear what it took to get in jail? So I always felt like it made sense for them to explain what it took. I mean, for example, in Gonzalez, it's like you cannot basically cut the baby in half. Once the baby is half born, where the navel has passed You can see the navel, the baby's belly button. You can't kill it then. I remember at least one group came out saying they're going to be sawing babies in half, or this decision is okay with sawing babies almost in half, whatever. It's like, no, nobody's for that. Nobody wants. The decision explained exactly, where the line was, and you have to do that. That's not necessarily an endorsement. So my argument is not that we should do evil that good may come. My argument is that when we pass incremental bills that will have a positive impact for the unborn, then we are actually not doing evil, we're doing a good thing. So let me say that again. My argument is not that we should do evil that good may come. It's not a utilitarian argument. My argument is that when we pass incremental bills that will have a positive impact for the unborn, we're not actually doing evil, we're doing a good thing. I think it's clear to anybody that when an incremental bill gets passed, that our community, the pro-life movement, we want to save all, but we know we can't right now, sadly. So we're going to save the most that we can. And then we're going to go from there. That's called graduated absolutism. You go as far as you can go and then reevaluate, okay, how far can we go now? And then you go that far. I don't think there's anything wrong with graduated absolutism. So here's why this is not utilitarian. We're not saying that we'll kill one baby if you let another one go. Imagine this is just an analogy. Imagine like a Japanese POW camp where a Japanese soldier, lines up 10 guys, 10 prisoners, and tells the 11th one, okay, you can either take 2 with you and we'll let you guys go and we'll kill the other 8, or you can go alone and we'll kill all 10. We're going to let you go either way. So you can either take 2 with you if you want, or we're going to kill all 10. I think almost anyone can agree that you should take the 2. You take the most that you can. I don't think that would be endorsing killing the other 8. Like there's this implicit endorsement that those 8 guys aren't actual persons. No, you're doing the best you can. I mean, I can imagine some personate people responding to that, maybe being like, well, so you're saying, and then you can kill the prisoners of war. No, that's not. It seems clear that, we value life and we're trying to save as much as we can. And then we're going from there. I don't see a biblical argument that says that if you can't save all, you can't save any. Think of the midwives in Exodus 1. They saved as many as they could, and they were praised for it. Biblically, they even lied when Pharaoh confronted them. They didn't stand and make this like pro-life argument or statement. They lied about it so that they could continue saving babies. And it could be argued, I wouldn't argue this, but you could you argue that they were implicitly telling the leader of the land that it's okay to kill infants. They never to his face say you should not do that. Human lives are valuable or whatever. No. They lied and they saved as many as they could, and they're praised for that. William Wilberforce, the same thing. If you do not think that William Wilberforce was pro-abolition legislation that did not get the entire job done, then you need to read a good biography on him. This isn't a full biography, but I'll tell you I like this book. If you're a person, you might hate this book. This is by Clark Forsyth. It's Politics for the Greatest Good. I think this is a good book. I might not agree with every single thing in it, but I generally agree with the message of the book. It's called Politics for the Greatest Good, The Case for Prudence in the Public Square. And he's got a whole chapter on Wilberforce explaining that Wilberforce did, most years, attempt to pass a grand, full-on abolitionist bill, that would abolish 100% of slavery. But then sometimes he would also allow and support smaller bills that had a better chance of getting through Parliament. And even in the end, if you've seen Amazing Grace, this is based on a true story. Now, it seems like they might have stretched a few details or made things a little bit more dramatic than they actually were. But the idea that there was this bill in the end that accomplished everything by not abolishing this slavery, but kind of abolishing the slave trade to certain other countries, to conquered nations. That's true. And the fact that there was some of the pro-slavery people were not there I'm not sure if the part where they kind of tricked them to go into this party, I'm not sure if that actually happened. I do know that there were pro-slavery people that were not there because they didn't know that this was a substantial slavery bill. And it is true that Wilberforce and his team purposely chose to be quiet during the debate of this bill. This was kind of a tricky move, and it worked. And yes, they continued supporting other bills too. But that's like one of the major victories of the Wilberforce thing. A personhood type person who says, well, you can't ever have bills that you could end with and then you can kill the baby, could say, well, Wilberforce, he supported a bill. He purposely was quiet during the debate so that he wouldn't mess it up, like the strategy behind it. You could have ended that bill with, and then you can own the slave. If you're not transporting slaves to this country or that country, and you have these flags on your ship, then you can sell the slave or own the slave. Well, yeah, they basically in one move abolished a big portion of the slave trade, and then they were able to keep on going. They kept on educating. They kept on doing it. You don't end. You don't stop. You keep on going. This graduated absolutism, and I don't have a principled problem with that. Assuming that you're not communicating to people a confusing message that we only care about. But I just don't think that's what's going on. I don't think that there's any pro-choice people that really think that because of this bill, the fetal pain bill, for example, that pro-lifers only care about babies that can feel pain. No. Clearly, people are taking the idea that we shouldn't cause unnecessary, significant pain to any entity that can feel it. I mean, you can't put animals through this either. I know that there are animals that feel pain when they're killed, but I mean, most of our society agrees that we shouldn't cause unnecessary suffering to even animals. And you kind of combining that with what happened with the Gosnell story, and they're trying to make a case to the public that, it seems like if we know that the unborn can feel pain by 20 weeks, it's probably a lot earlier than that. We're going to be getting to that on Life Report in the next year. But if we know that they feel pain certainly by 20 weeks, if we know that abortion causes a lot of pain, what do we think about that? And when the partial birth abortion ban passed, obviously the next step was go for a late-term abortion ban, because partial birth abortion the ban didn't ban all late-term abortion like some thought it did. It banned a certain procedure. And frankly, I'm not sure that a D&E is better than a partial birth abortion than a DNX procedure. I think, frankly, if I had to choose, I'd probably go with the DNX. The D&E is horrible. So in the end, I think the question that you need to ask yourself is, do you think it's more important to make an impact or to make a statement? I think it's more important to make an impact, especially if making that impact doesn't mess up your statement, which I just don't think it does. So you can see that's pretty much the difference. A couple other quick thoughts on this. If you really believe you can never support a bill that somebody could, kind of throw this negative spin on it and say, and then you can kill the baby, then you can only be for bills that end all abortions. You could not support a bill that banned 99% of abortions, even if you knew that they were going to go after the 1% and succeed the next year. You could not support it. And that's just not where I'm at. But I'm not going to say you're not pro-life for being on a different. This is a question of strategy. I think we can all agree that we should all be able to agree that we're pro-life. I can agree that there are some pro-life bills that don't directly save a lot of lives. The partial birth abortion ban. There's not that many lives directly saved by the partial birth abortion ban, I don't think. That was about education. Same thing with, I'll say, parental notification bills. If parental consent bills do save a lot of lives. Parental notification, I'm not convinced, because we've got evidence from several states that they'll use the judicial bypass. There's this kind of loophole where Planned Parenthood actually hires lawyers that represent their potential patient in front of a judge, saying, "Hey, she shouldn't have to go to her parents, and we shouldn't have to notify them about the abortion." And we find out that they do this with everybody. So once again, I think these bills can have educational value, and that would be the question: do they have educational value or not? I think they probably do, especially the partial birth abortion ban. I mean, there's no bigger time where a big block of pro-choice people came to the pro-life side than during that debate, because for the first time, as Scott Klusendorf, I think Scott's the one that said, for the first time, we weren't debating privacy. We were talking about what abortion does to a baby. And that made an impact. I happen to know, and I'm not going to name who this is because I'm not sure if he would want this story to be told publicly, but I know that there's someone who helps draft pro-life legislation who he says, look, this is about education. Right now, our society needs to be educated. And I've heard from a reliable source that he was disappointed by how easily the Born Alive Infants Protection Act passed. The bill that President Obama is the only one that voted against it. Like, everyone was okay with it. Hillary Clinton, Barbara Boxer, like all these guys. Like, yeah, if the baby's born alive, you should have to protect it. Like, everybody pretty much agreed. And I heard that one of these guys that helps draft this legislation was like, this passed so quickly. I wanted there to be a debate. I wanted to see Boxer or Clinton or whoever on the floor saying that they don't think that these babies should be protected. Let society see that and have the debate. But it passed really fast because it's so obviously common sense. So yes, there is educational value to these bills, and at least a lot of the time. I agree that you should not add an exception if you don't need to pass it. Someone that I know was on my Facebook page earlier today saying that she doesn't think that the fetal pain bill, that they needed to add the rape exception. If she's right, then I agree. Don't add it. Why add it if you don't need to? But that's kind of a wisdom decision. I'm not saying, I think I've already discussed the moral question. At that point, it becomes a question, do you actually need to or not? And I think the politicians are probably going to know better than the lobbying organizations, usually. That might not always be true, but I think I certainly don't know as much about what it takes. I'm not the one that has a one-on-one relationship with, all the members of Congress or all the members in the Senate to, and having, pages go and get vote counts and find out exactly where we are and how far do we have to go. So I don't know if that's true, that they didn't add the rape exception. If you don't need to add it, I agree, don't add it. So ultimately, in the end, I want to make an impact more than a statement. I don't believe that passing a bill with a rape exception tacked onto it at the last minute sends a message to pro-choice people that we don't care about the babies conceived in rape that are sometimes killed in abortion. I think it's really clear that we're just trying to save as many lives as we can, and we're going to keep on saving as many as we can every step of the way. Thanks. I hope that was helpful. You can send emails to me at josh@prolifepodcast.net, and I'll be trying to answer your questions more often than I have in the past. Thanks.